All right, guys. Sorry we're a little late today on our Thursday. Let's talk a little bit about history again. And again, always, if you guys have questions, type that down below. What are we talking about today, Jan?
Okay, this is a Boyse anti-tank gun. It's British, come out in the 1930s.
He said boys, by the way.
Boyse, B-O-Y-E-S, that's how it's spelled.
Darn it, I spelled it
I
wrong.
knew you did.
B-O-Y-E-S, yeah.
Well, I spelled it B-O-Y-S-E.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're close.
What do we know?
Yeah, what do we know?
All right. So, what makes this gun so special? What is it? What am I even looking at?
Okay, we'll go back to the beginning.
Let's do that.
Okay, in World War I, the British had tanks, and other than artillery, they didn't have anything to take them out, so the Germans come up with a big single-shot rifle. It was 13 millimeter, and it would penetrate the tanks of the era. The U.S., rather than
And
build
you say the era. What's the era?
World War I, 20s, 30s, that
20s,
era.
30s. Okay.
The U.S. come up with a 50 BMG machine gun for that very same reason.
Now, who came up with that?
The U.S. come out
US,
the 50
Browning.
the Browning,
Right.
the M2 Browning.
Okay.
Every other country in the 30s had something similar to this. The Germans had the Sulfurin, which was 20 millimeter. It was a semi-auto. The Finns had the Lottie. It was also 20 millimeter. The Russians had a couple bolt-action anti-tank guns very similar to this. I don't remember the models. They were 13 or 14
For the
millimeter.
most part, on this entire series, we've been talking about full auto guns.
Yeah.
And this is not. This
This
is
is
just
not.
a simple bolt action gun.
This is, bolt action rifle, basically is what it is. This was the British. They come out in the 1930s. By the time World War II started, the tank armor got heavy enough that they were ineffective against the bigger tanks.
Is that because of what? Thickness, modern steel, material
Thickness of the
difference?
steel, they made them bigger for the anti-tank guns than these. Now these would penetrate the Mark I and the Mark II Panzers, but the 3.4s and the Tigers no. And they still used them up in there against half-tracks and other thin-skinned, as they call them, vehicles.
When would, and we talked about this just a little bit ago, when would this have been produced? Why in the 30s? This particular one would have been done in the 30s.
This one, they come out, I'm not exactly sure when they come out. I think this one was made in 1939. Like I said, it's a bolt action, had a 5-shot.
What would have been chambered in?
The original caliber was 55 Boyse. It was 55 caliber. Ballistically, it was about the same as a 50 BMG.
Why would a lot of people not want this in 55?
Well, there's two reasons. 55 Boyse, the ammunition is almost impossible to find. The ammunition's collector. This gun and probably, I don't know, a lot of them were converted to 50 Browning machine gun. And they done it for two reasons. One, so if you want to shoot it, you can find ammunition. And the other reason is anything over 50 caliber is an NFA weapon. In this case, in the original caliber, it'd be called a destructive device. In
Right,
the
so
paper,
for once we don't have to have a tax tape. This
There's
is
no-
the same thing, guys. If you had to compare it, this would be kind of like the grandfather to the Barrett.
Yeah, this would be equivalent to a Barrett. It's like I say, this one's in 50 BMG, makes a Title I.
And so how did they do that? They simply just took the barrel out.
Oh, they just-
machined, and this is, I'm telling you guys, I don't know if you can see this on the video basically. I mean, it is a beautiful, beautiful barrel. And,
Yeah.
and I don't get excited about that very often, but I'm talking about machine work. It's impressive.
Yeah, this is the original receiver, and from here on up to the muzzle breaking the sight is the new manufactured barrel.
So something different from this. Let's just do this. Let's start from the back and go front. We already talked about barrel, but let's go to the back. What are we looking at the back? Is that canvas?
Yeah, this is rubber covered with canvas. It's a recoil pad like you would have on a shotgun or anything to help recoil.
And if I was a pirate, I could use this handle.
Well,
see
yeah, the handle here is for your offhand. When you would shoot it, you would,
Go ahead and show them how you do that.
okay, the sights are offset because the magazine would go in the front like this. That'd be like that. So the sights are offset, the rear sight's offset. It's typical British. But you would put this hand here and this hand here. This is your cheek piece, so you get a good cheek weld, and this is how you would actually shoot it. And it's got aperture sights. And you want to change your elevation, can screw
You
this
could just simply screw this up or down,
down.
and change your elevation.
for your bipod.
All right, so let's go back here at the back, because again, as everyone knows that watches this stuff, I am an idiot. So let's go back here. We're looking at, and Basil, did you get a close up of this yet so people can see it? Guys, this is neat. Why would they have had necessarily this ring over here to just not crush their hand when they laid it back
Well,
down?
the recoil is it protects your hand from anything on the backside on
Gotcha.
recoil. And if you notice that this and the pistol grip are at an angle, the wrong angle, you would think.
Right.
So when the gun recoils, it recoils away from your hand.
Gotcha. You guys can see how severe this angle is compared to
Even the
anything
one
else
on the
that you've
back.
seen. I mean, this is a definite severe angle. This is like the same trigger trigger guard, excuse me, as like an AR even.
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same angle. What's this made out of?
Aluminum, that's out of aluminum.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wouldn't have imagined that they would have used aluminum on a gun that would have been a 50.
Well, the other thing about this is kind of unique is the action. This is a chassis. These rails are a chassis. This
So it's
action.
the exact same thing you guys would expect to see out of all the modern stuff.
It's like an artillery.
Not wood. This is not wood. This is metal.
This is metal.
This is a metal chassis, just like you would see in a Ruger Precision or anything like that made out of aluminum nowadays. This is not. This is out of some thick stuff.
Well, the idea is this actually the barrel and the action recoils in this chassis like an artillery piece to help soak up some of the recoil.
So what are we looking at when we look back here, down in here? You said
This
was
is
a buffer
actually
tube.
this is your buffer and your springs for the recoil mechanism. So when you fire it, this whole thing can move back to help soak up. So it spreads the recoil
Can't
out.
soak up that much though. I mean, we're
Well, it
talking
spreads
about
it out
moving.
over a longer period. Much
Oh
happen.
my goodness.
But it slows
This
down.
much.
The,
I thought it was at least that long. It's not. It's this long.
what it does, it spreads the recoil out over a longer period of time. So it doesn't jab you as hard, just longer. That
Sure.
was the idea of it.
What are we looking about back here? What is the screw cap here on the top?
Oh, well, this is typical. If we remember when we done the one on the Vickers machine gun, the Brits were good about this. This is your oil bottle, so you would have oil to lubricate your firearm. So it was built in.
Also made out of aluminum.
Also, yeah, made out of aluminum.
So who would have made this?
This particular one was made by BSA, Birmingham Small Arms in Britain.
Really?
Yeah, you've heard of BSA.
Right. They made motorcycles. They
Made
made guns. They made bicycles.
Yeah,
They
all
made
kinds
a
of
bunch
stuff. And they made these. They were also made in Canada by the John Inglis Company.
Inglis?
Inglis. That's who made the Inglis high powers during World War II. But anyway, if you want to talk about beautiful workmanship, I'll pull the bolt out. You get a look at this. Here's your locking lugs. It's just a typical bolt action.
Right, guys. This is nothing different than a standard bolt action that you would see on the shelf right now.
No, I like say, except it's multiple locking lugs. Kind of like the Weatherbees are that way.
Sure.
You know, it's not a new idea,
Right.
but they, had multiple locking lugs to give it a greater strength.
All right, so let's move a little bit forward. We're looking at where we see the magazine. The
Oh.
reason that you have offset sights, just like we've talked about before, is because most of these guns have their magazine up top and kind of, I don't want to say, would it be called gravity, kind of a gravity?
Well, it's not gravity. They're spring loaded, but the gravity will help. And the other thing is, if you got the magazine out the top, you can have a lower profile. You can get the gun lower to the ground, which presents a smaller target to the gunner. And the magazine will go in the top like
So it's
this.
kind of like an AK. It goes in first. It goes in
Yeah,
from
and
the
tips
top
in.
and then tips in backwards.
And the
How many
item-
rounds can fit into that magazine?
5 rounds. They were 5 rounds. And like I say, load like any other magazine. They eject out the bottom out here.
So basically, take a top view for me if you would. So what he's talking about, guys, is right here.
When
We're
you-
going straight through here. After they rack that out, it's not flinging out like you would see in a bolt action.
No, they
There's
go
no
down.
ejector grabbing that. It's just casings coming out, dropping down the bottom. Now, do they have having issues with that kind of jamming up or getting
No,
caught
there's
there?
all kinds of room in there,
It's because it gives it.
Yeah,
It's giving it about an extra. What would you say? 2 inches
or every bit of it, because, and
from the time it goes here to a 50. I mean, we're only talking
yeah.
that much. So.
And that's what this, the big aluminum on here, the case hits this so it won't hit your finger. when you
That makes
inject.
sense. Why I thought that was casting. Oh, come here. Look at this. So I thought this was casting. It's not casting. So what that is the rear right here, based on the front. I don't know if you can see that. Right here. See all these marks?
That's where the empty
from
cases
the
have
empty
been.
casing keeps hitting it. It's making a kind of a divot inside this aluminum, this soft aluminum. It's coming down, and the casing's coming out and falling on that.
That's to protect your hand and finger from hot brass coming out of it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And if we go on down, like say the sights are offset,
Yeah, right down here.
they're an aperture rear sight, post front, and they do have a muzzle brake. That is the muzzle brake on there, and the muzzle brake's not real effective on them. It's 360.
Yeah, how can you? I mean, it's just one, almost like a baffle, just one.
Yeah, and
It's
they're
not
not
doing much.
Oh, they do some, I'm sure. But the bad part about that brake is it vents the gas 360 degrees all the way around, and if you're over loose dirt, every time you shoot it, you get a big cloud of dirt and gravel and everything else in your face, because a muzzle blast would be like a Barrett. It's horrendous.
Right, I've noticed it before when guys are shooting Barretts or anything else. It's not so bad when you're behind them.
Right, but
Man,
beside
if
it,
you're beside them, that crap is loud. It's insane. So if you guys ever go out on the range and see a guy shooting at 50, you don't want to be staying beside him.
No,
It's
get
too
way
loud.
back.
Get behind them.
Get way
And
back.
the sound's not too bad. What should we expect to see out of maybe even like a trigger pull on this? Would it be something that would have been more of a precision?
Yeah, they were. The accuracy was actually quite good on them. These has been rebarreled with the guy who done this one, put a match chamber and everything else. Now, he has one of his own, and he mounted an optical sight on it. And as I was saying earlier, he went out west to a long range match, and they was shooting 2,000, 2,500 yards. And with an optical sight on one, he was making the guys with the Barretts look bad.
How would you mount a sight to it?
Well, he had to drill and tap the side of the
Oh, so it is offset, just like
Yeah,
yours.
he mounted it offset. And
Wow.
and of course these have collector value, and
Sure.
The owner of this one didn't want to drill and
Right.
tap it. He didn't care.
Right. I understand that completely. So what are we talking about here as a bipod? So it's a bipod. We can call it
It's a
tripod,
bipod,
whatever you want
bipod.
to call it. But we have holes up front, Basil. Have you seen this yet? So right here, you told me off camera here, why those holes are here. Why are they here?
Well, you would drive a stake in each hole, and it would help keep it from moving back and help control some of the recoil. You could drive a stake in there. If you notice, it's got a big foot here that will dig in the ground also. Because like I say, they have quite a bit of recoil.
Are these available?
Yeah, they're not particularly common, but they are available. You don't see them for sale a lot. They're about half the money a Barrett is.
Right.
Just, about what they cost.
But craftsmanship. I mean, the overall craftsmanship of this,
It's beautiful.
it's beautiful. It really is. It's hard to see on camera, guys, but I'm telling you.
Well, that's just like-
craftsmanship at a lot of this older stuff is not even close to what you see nowadays.
Well, like on your bipod here, you need to raise your bipod up and down. You just screw the knurled knob there, and you screw your bipod up and down. Makes it a lot easier than anything you would use today.
For sure.
Now, it's like I say, it's heavy. It weighs about 36 pounds, but in 50 BMG, that's probably
Right. It's what you would expect.
about what you'd expect. I think Barretts are weigh about, 25?
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Sure. So, what would you like for people to know about this?
Actually, I've told them about, I think, everything there is. Like I say, it's a Title I firearm. You can buy them on a 4473.
Right.
They shoot very well.
Somebody asked, how does it compare to the Winchester anti-tank 50 from World War II?
I didn't know Winchester made an anti-tank gun in World War II. Actually, the Marine Corps used these in the South Pacific. The Marines did use Boyse anti-tank guns in the South Pacific. And they were made by the English company, and they were effective against the Japanese tanks of the era all through World War II.
Again, Boyse anti-tank
Tank gun, yeah.
That's all this is called. This isn't a blah 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 93
Nope.
M14 model.
It's a Boyse anti-tank gun. That's what it is. Yeah. Now the Marines, when they used it in the South Pacific, they called them an elephant gun.
Everybody calls it an elephant gun if it shoots a big.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
guys, that is a little background, a little history about something that you're not used to seeing. All right, and again, that is the Boyse anti-tank gun. I can say that. Basically, we're used to saying guns like a /07 commercial grade
Wrong.
4.2.
that was last week.
dash 5 that that Jan usually likes to bring in and show us. So, Jan, again, I appreciate it. Bringing in something, finding this one for us, and saying that each week we give him a task to go out somewhere
and
talk
find
to
something.
talk to his
And it's
people,
getting harder to find.
and find me something cool to talk about. And of course, I don't talk about it. Jan talks about it because he's the guy that knows. So, guys, thank you again for watching. If you have any questions or want us to talk about something else next week, don't hesitate to do so.